Hey guys, this is David Wills with another episode of TED-IELTS. It's been a long time since my last video. This summer I was traveling in the United States of America. I visited my friend and together we traveled all around the south of the country. I'll put a couple of pictures here, and here. Well, I'm back to work now. I've been busy marking people's essays, giving some IELTS lessons on Skype, and now I'm trying to write some articles for my website and make a few videos as well. So back to being busy with IELTS work. Today's video is going to be about writing an essay for IELTS Writing Task 2. Today we're going to look at discuss both views and give your opinion kind of question. And this is going to be an interesting one. It takes into consideration the topics of health and education. I'm going to show you the whole process of writing the essay and you'll see my sample essay as well. If this video is useful for you, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to check out my website www.TED-IELTS.com for more IELTS material. Here we go. We're going to go over to my computer now and look at the question for today. We can see it here. Some people think that the government should pay for healthcare and education, but others claim that it is the individual's responsibility. Discuss both views and give your opinion. So what do we need to do when we see a question like this? Well, let's look down to this piece of advice here. This is how I generally recommend people structure their approach to IELTS writing, part 2. I think you should spend 2 minutes analyzing the question. So reading the question and thinking about it. It's important you don't start writing too quickly. Then you should spend 2 minutes generating ideas for your answer. So that means brainstorming. Maybe writing down lots of ideas and then choosing the best one or two. I think you should spend then 3 minutes planning your structure. This is something that gets much easier with practice. Once you've written 20 or 50 practice IELTS essays, the planning just becomes really second nature. Typically, we write 4 or 5 paragraphs, although 4 is much more common than 5. Then I think you should spend 30 minutes actually writing the essay, and finally 3 minutes checking your answer. The 3 minutes at the end you should spend looking for spelling mistakes, errors in grammar, mistakes in punctuation, and so on. You should definitely know your weaknesses before you start writing. You can do this by having an expert check your writing for you. You can see the link in the description below where I offer my services. Once you know your weaknesses, you can look for these in your essay. So let's look at our question for now. What topic is this question? Well, one common topic is healthcare, another is education. This isn't really the topic of this essay. This is more a society topic. You can see that when we have this part here, the government should pay for. This is telling us that we're discussing a question related to society more generally than healthcare education. When you look at a question like this, it is tempting to start writing just about healthcare and education, but we need to think of the wider issue, which is the government paying for it. Notice as well that these two topics are put together. When you see them, healthcare and education, you might start thinking, I will write one paragraph about healthcare, one paragraph about education. But actually, that's not a good way to structure this essay. In this statement, we have two ideas. So the first idea is that the government should pay for healthcare and education. The other idea is that people, individual people, should pay for healthcare and education. So these are the two ideas that we have to discuss. What is our task? Well, we have to discuss both views, of course, and then we have to give our opinion. It is important that we do both of these things. If you fail to discuss both views or fail to give your opinion, you will definitely get a low score for task achievement, which would bring down your overall score. So let's look at a plan for this essay. Here we go. I wrote this plan already. It took me about 2 minutes or so to do. So the basic structure is introduction and conclusion with paragraph 1 and paragraph 2, body paragraph 1 and body paragraph 2 in the middle. I recommend this structure for 90% of all IELTS essays, task 2 essays. The introduction, we're going to restate the question. So we'll look at this part here, the statement. We're going to paraphrase it. So to say the same thing in new words. Sometimes we can do this in one sentence, sometimes 2 sentences. Then we're going to state the purpose of the essay. So we might say, this essay will discuss both views, and then conclude that the government should pay, for example. In our conclusion, we'll give an overview, which kind of is similar to the very first sentence, to restate the question, but we will also bring in our conclusion, our main idea, what we think. And we should also mention the key ideas. So we will look back to the first point from paragraph 1 and 2. Our body paragraphs then, there's no perfect way to do this. This is my idea of what a good essay would include. For paragraph 1 then, I think we will talk about how health and education are fundamental human rights. So notice I've put these two ideas, health and education, together. We're not going to talk about health first and education second. I think they have to come together. This is a 250-word essay. That's not much. You don't have a lot of space to write here, and you don't have a lot of time. So I'll write 1 or 2 sentences just stating that. I will explain further. So to give more details about this, and then I think I should give an example of how they benefit society. For paragraph 2 then, I need to state the opposite. So I'm going to discuss both views, of course. Personally, I think governments should pay for health and education for all people. So that's why I've written this paragraph first, because it's going to be my strongest argument. For the discussing the other view, I will briefly say that point, which is that some people claim that it is a burden on society for governments to pay for healthcare and education. But then when it comes to giving explanation and details, I will affirm my view and I will say why this is wrong. It's important that I say a little about why other people think it's important that individuals pay. Otherwise, maybe I will not achieve enough for task achievement there. I will not score highly enough for task achievement. And I think it's useful to include an example of how it's unfair. So now I'm going to start writing this. I'm going to write the essay just at the moment. I don't have it prepared. I will speed up the video, otherwise it will be very boring for you to watch. But I will make a few comments throughout to explain what I'm thinking. And when I do that, I will slow it down just to let you see. So this is my first paragraph, my introduction. Here you can see I have 2 sentences, just like I planned. The first sentence here, there is disagreement over whether governments should pay the costs associated with healthcare and education, or whether these should be paid for by individuals. You can see that I've basically just restated this statement from the question, but I've put it into new words. This statement here, there is disagreement over whether, that's quite a useful phrase that you can use at the beginning of this sort of essay. Then for my next sentence, I say, in this essay, I will look at both sides of the debate. To be honest, for a discuss both views question, you can almost always use this expression. Almost always. Then I say, and then side with those who believe that governments should cover these costs. So this part, this is me giving my opinion. Now it's important for IELTS writing task to give your opinion in the introduction, to make it clear in the body paragraphs, and then to reaffirm it in conclusion. By doing this, you're keeping your opinion consistent throughout the essay. Let's begin on paragraph 1, body paragraph 1 now. So this is my second paragraph. It was a little difficult to write, actually. There's a lot to say, but you can't say too much. Perhaps I did. This was 117 words. So my first sentence here, those who think that governments should cover the costs of health and education claim that these are fundamental human rights. You can see I've just restated my notes there, but in more formal language. Rather than just stating this as my opinion, which is not the right way to do it, I started off with this phrase, those who think that governments should cover the cost. That's a way of talking about both views and paraphrasing, some people think that. Whoops, there's a mistake there. Some people think that. Gotta be careful when you find these questions online, huh? Right, so I go on to explain further, which is my next point here. Says they believe that healthcare and education should be available to all human beings, and that the only way to ensure this is for governments to pay the costs associated with them. So that's quite important. I've basically just taken the first idea, healthcare and education are fundamental human rights. I've explained further by just giving more details and using more words to advance my idea. I have another sentence that continues this idea, explaining yet further. It is completely unfair that some people in the world lack access to either of these, and so all governments should have a duty to pay for them. So my first 3 sentences expand upon this main idea. They develop naturally in a way that would increase my score for coherence and cohesion by giving logical flow. Then the last 2 sentences are the example here of how they benefit society. this is not just an act of charity, as the society benefits in the long term. We don't usually say the society, but because I've been talking about the country prior to that, I can say the society because it's a reference back to the society previously mentioned. Finally, a healthy society is more economically productive, and an educated society can create more innovations and provide more benefits to the country. So here are my examples of, in practical terms, of why healthcare and education should be paid for by the government. My next paragraph then, I'm going to try to write following this structure here. So my second body paragraph then starts off by saying those who are against governments paying for healthcare and education suggest that it is a burden on the country's financial resources. So that is basically taking my first note from this part of the structure. Some claim it is a burden on society. Of course, instead of saying some claim, I use this expression, those who are against governments. Notice that that's quite similar to this paragraph here, those who think that government should. I don't think it's close enough to be repetitive. Maybe some people might disagree there, and you might want to paraphrase this to use some synonyms. Say that on the other hand, for example. But I think this is fine. Then they think that these costs should be covered by the individual on a case-to-case basis, and that this would be more economically sensible. So that is my explanation. That is me giving more details here. Like I said, if I failed to give many details, then that could potentially be seen as a failure of task achievement. So I'm trying to explain their position more. Then I've got this transition sentence here. However, this seems rather unfair. So this is me introducing my opinion. Remember, give your opinion, and my opinion has to be clear throughout the whole essay. And then I explain my opinion in 2 sentences. That's these ones. So although not everyone has children, some people may complain about contributing to the education system. Education benefits society as a whole. Now this kind of contains an idea that alludes to the introduction of this paragraph. So although I didn't state it clearly before, some people might be against governments paying for education because they don't have children. They say, if I don't have children, why should I pay for the education for the funding of schools? Well, I guess 2 reasons. One is that you probably went to school when you were a child, so now you're paying back. And secondly, education is beneficial for a country. That's my opinion anyway. Moreover, everyone could potentially require medical treatment, and so everyone should be expected to pay taxes that contribute to a universal healthcare system. So what I've done here is I've given an example of how it's unfair and an explanation of why it's wrong, sort of wrapped into these 2 sentences there. Finally, I have to come to a conclusion. I need to give an overview and mention the key ideas. Whenever I give my conclusion, I always start with this phrase here, in conclusion. Why do I do that? Well, it's appropriate. It's really obvious. Some people think, oh, it's repetitive if you always do that. Well, you're just writing it once. You will only use this phrase once in your whole IELTS exam, so it's not repetitive. I think it's very appropriate to use. So my conclusion will say, governments should pay for education and healthcare because these are beneficial for the whole country and they are fundamental human rights. So I've given my opinion, and my opinion refers back to my arguments from the 2 body paragraphs. I think it's important that you mention the opposite side in the conclusion, because this was a discuss both views question. So even though I disagreed with the other view, I should at least acknowledge it. So I said, even though some people argue that individuals should pay these costs when they need education or healthcare, and then I reaffirm my view, the arguments on that side of the debate are weak. Okay, so I mentioned previously that at the end of your essay, you need to spend about 3 minutes checking your answer. Everyone should do that. Even a native speaker like me, I will sometimes make mistakes. I will spell a word incorrectly, or I will type a word twice, or maybe make some mistake in grammar or punctuation because I'm writing too fast. So we should all go back and check again. Okay, so I have checked my answer. I could not find any mistakes in it. I guess because I was checking as I wrote and I was reading out and discussing each paragraph as I went. But you should definitely leave time to do that. It is important that you follow some sort of plan like this in your practice and in your real IELTS exam. You don't have to follow my plan exactly, but this is my recommendation, and I think it would be useful for most people. You obviously don't have to write a full structure like this, but I think that is also useful in your practice, and you should make a few notes before you start writing. It makes it a lot easier to write an essay that does not go off topic, that it has a degree of logical flow to it, and can therefore score highly for task achievement and coherence and cohesion. Well, I hope that today's lesson has been useful for you. If you would like me to give you feedback on your essays, you can use my essay correction service. The details are in the description down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.